Federal law allows citizens to reproduce, distribute, or exhibit portions of copyrighted motion pictures, videotapes, or video discs under certain circumstances without authorization of the copyright holder. This infringement of copyright is called fair use, and is allowed for purposes of criticism, news reporting, teaching, and parody. This means you. Happy 2016, everyone. Welcome to the Season 1 Awards show of the Animated Angels and Crappy Cartoons. I am your host, Susie Doodle. This year, I've obtained at least 125 subscribers, released 74 videos, 50 that were actual reviews, 33 crappy cartoons, and 18 animated angels that showcased 63 episodes of 42 different shows, 2 movies, and 2 internet videos. So, what are the Doodle Awards? Well, basically, they're a summary of the ups and downs to my series and to showcase the highlight reviews. If they win a Doodle Award, then they are definitely noteworthy. So the awards were chosen on the 21st, giving me enough time to write this award show. If there were any changes to statistics during the writing and release, they will not be in effect. So please keep this in mind. And so, let us begin the first Doodle Award show. I guess I'm not the only one who's disgusted by this episode. The post-Life of Brian-centered episodes are fucking awful, and Stewie as Anisonite is a prime example of what I mean. And apparently none of you agreed with this sentiment, or at least enjoyed the fact that I thrashed on Family Guy for about 4 minutes. Either way, this episode got the bronze. I'm not gonna lie, I was surprised at how much this episode was liked, given that it was one of the most unfair reviews I ever gave. In fact, I felt so bad that I went back and reviewed episodes that were worse than this one. However, that didn't much matter, as 10 of you liked this review anyway, giving this one a silver. I'm going to say this now. I really liked making this review. It was worth the extra week I put into it after Disney Month, and apparently it was worth it for you guys too, as a solid 53 of you guys liked it, making this easily the most liked review I made on Season 1, among other things, giving it the Gold Award. I don't know why this was disliked as much as it was. The episode really is the worst 2006 Teen Titans brought us, being the equivalent of a bad soap opera. Maybe it was because I trash-talked the Tara Beast Boy relationship, or maybe it was because I went too much into my history of why Season 6 didn't happen. Whatever the reason may be, this one got bronze of the most disliked. Alternatively, I'm surprised this one isn't the most disliked review I've made this year. Hell, I didn't even like it. I rambled on too much. I ranted about one bad aspect about the show, whereas I should have mentioned everything I had issues with, and on top of that, it went far too political. This is definitely the best example of how not to do a review, and yet, it only got silver. And now, to 12 Ounce Mouse? Really? This was the worst? This was the one that pissed you guys off the most? Why? Do I just not get the humor behind it? Was it the counter I added to the review? Did I not go into enough about surrealism? Should I have gone the Mr. Inter route? You know, despite the fact that my review was before Inters. Why did this deserve the gold for the most hated review? So this is still a thing I reviewed. I'm just happy someone helped me understand what the term quicker than a kitten on a hot tin roof meant. With only a handful of comments, my review of Horrid Henry gets both a meh from me and a bronze in the top 3 most commented of my reviews that came out this year. Okay, this one kind of cheated. Schnitzel Makes a Deposit was around the time I was asking for requests for Season 2. And boy did some of you deliver. And by deliver I mean give me a metric fuck ton of Wander Over Yonder and We Bear Bears to review. Either way, while this was a pretty boring and gimmicky review, it still gets a silver for the most commented review. Unsurprisingly, this gets the gold again, and it gets the gold for beautiful reasons. I actually managed to spark up conversations in the comments of this review, even going to extent to write a full essay in the comments explaining why they agree or disagree with my points. This easily deserves a gold. Nothing really to say here, I'm just gonna show. Yearbook Madness was honestly a weird episode to choose to review, seeing as I could have chose to review literally any other episode and could have gotten the same result. And yet I chose to review an episode nobody cared about. Well, I guess I can't say nobody, as it did rake in 373 views, thus leaving this a bronze. So what happens when you hop on the anti-SpongeBob bandwagon? You get my review of The Splinter, which had different effects than normal, but had the same old when it came to what was said. However, an advertisement on my bigger channel and a rather decent shitty presentation later, and it becomes my second most watched review. Teen Titans Go is kind of ironically the show that has shoveled me as far as I've gotten. I never want to see the show ever again, and actually want it gone, yet without it I probably wouldn't have been successful as a reviewer. And this review episode really demonstrates that. Debatably, it could be considered a rant, but whatever you want to call it, it got the gold. And now to give a couple short little countdowns of my personal highlights of this year, with my top 5 best animated angels and top 5 worst crappy cartoons. The first, and so far the only review the artist reviewed, and I agree with most of the things that they had said. This poem is great. It really speaks to the people who are going through a bullying problem, or going through an issue with identity, and to this day, I link people to that video to help explain that people can be evil and the best thing to do is to tell yourself that they are wrong and that you are fine the way you are. If you haven't seen this video yet, go look up To This Day immediately. Don't watch the review. Straight up, watch the video. When it comes to character development, look no further than Gravity Falls, which has had a consistent record with developing characters continuously, but I believe Pacifica had the most interesting of the character development within Northwest Mansion Noir, an episode that still, after half a year, holds strong in my top 5 Gravity Falls episodes, and probably top 10 on my favorite episodes of all time. The fact that a rude and spiteful character can become a character that truly is ripped apart learning about her family history is a feat very few shows can do correctly. And if you haven't already, I checked this one out too. Out of my Gregory Horror review, I give Season 1 the number 3 spot. That was a good Halloween special. Gregory Horror, being the only Japanese anime I reviewed this season, really sticks out amongst the crowd as it does what it sets out to do very well. At first you may find yourself confused, but everything pieces itself together very well in the end, making this a very well thought out story in comparison to other horror genre creations. There's a lot that goes on here that I don't want to spoil, so you may want to, well, you know, check it out yourself. My Little Pony has so far a 1 out of 4 good episode mark. Currently, you're failing, Hasbro. However, meet the 25% of good I have seen out of MLP this year, the Cutie Map. Basically the poke at the everybody's a winner people. I actually really enjoyed this episode's moral of, no, not everyone's equal, some people are better at things than others, and what you gotta do is find your skill set and let it shine. That's something I personally can get behind. If only all the episodes I've seen were this good. And finally we arrive at the only full-length movie I reviewed this year. The Shaun the Sheep movie was simply amazing. Being able to tell a whole story in a 1 hour 25-minute movie time frame with no dialogue. And it's actually a really touching story too, telling the story of a sheep, a dog, and a farmer with a case of amnesia. It also succeeds to do a bunch of physical comedy that can leave you in stitches if that's more your thing. It also doesn't help that it is one of the catchiest songs from a show or movie or whatever that I've heard this season, and trust me, I could do a list on that as well. And now to the crap. The soap opera superhero show starring 2 characters that could have been fucking awesome if it weren't for one having this big betrayal story and the other being a huge cringelord during this episode, abandoning his team to chase after a girl he blew it with 3 seasons ago. We knew where the Tara story left off. She was encased in molten hot rock, so obviously she wasn't dead. We know this because she can control rocks and the earth, and it also makes itself obvious throughout the episode that this girl isn't some clone, it is Tara, thus basically throwing that this could have been cliffhanger away before it even started. The only thing that could have been redeemed at this episode was the white monster that we sadly will never get the conclusion for. Let me touch a bit more on the Fourth Wall Teen Titans Go episode. I easily despise this episode. Besides them being the biggest hypocrites this side of politics, this episode fails to do anything funny or even really tell a story. Big surprise. In fact, if anything, it goes out of its way to shit on the good name of highbrow humor to basically spoof the fuck out of it, instead of actually trying out tongue-in-cheek jokes that could actually be funny. And then they have the audacity to basically sit there and say, yeah, fuck you, we know our show is awful, but we don't care, we're doing it this way anyway. Knowing your show is awful does not excuse you for being awful. Family Guy doesn't get away with this, and you won't either. From my house guest stories critique, Angelica Breaks a Leg is easily the #1 worst house guest story. Yes, even surpassing that shit Nussbaum wrote for Ruby Gloom. Angelica Breaks a Leg is tedious at best and hair-pullingly annoying at worst. Being that Angelica is only doing this for attention, and a contrived MacGuffin later, we have Angelica for the whole episode torturing Stu and Dee Dee until they get close to having a fucking mental breakdown. And all I'm hoping for is, throughout the episode, is Stu actually wringing the little brat's throat. Fucking hell, where do I start with this one? I honestly don't care that this is the first episode of Bob's Burgers. It's a contrived plot that forces characters to be in the wrong place at the right times, and it becomes painfully predictable. It also focuses on characters not listening or caring about what the other people say. In the case of this episode, a corrupt health inspector won't listen to Bob to get the test done. After Bob sees the lab in the back, the town refuses to listen to the problem and do property damage, and his family doesn't listen and gets him into this mess, and it just becomes a giant clusterfuck of stupid contrivances that are easily avoidable. Oh, you guys probably saw this coming a mile away. Nothing has got me so steamed at an episode as bad as Rodney's bachelor party. An episode entirely focused around purposely ignoring the main target, making fun of him, and even putting him into a position where he gets sexually harassed due to an incompetent police force who didn't even need to be involved if it wasn't for the fact we have a character who couldn't give a fuck about the person who actually bothered to give a fuck about them. It's so incredibly annoying to watch Tim struggle to get out of this terrible lie he didn't even create, only to lose in the end. Fuck this episode. Thank you guys so much for watching, and here's to another good year. If you would like to get caught up on future reviews, there's a link in the description below to a Facebook page. Basically, all that I'm gonna tell you. I mean, you can follow it, you can get all the updates to future reviews if you care. If not, I'm not gonna force you to do it. It's all up to you.